What's up, everybody? Welcome to Value Town, episode 115. I'm ChanManV, and joined today with Noxious over here, my co-host. What's up, Noxious?
Not much, man. Just looking at some cards. Been looking at them for like the past 2 weeks, and there just seems to be more and more coming out.
More and more. That's an understatement. There's like five
Yeah.
that come out within the hour. It's pretty nuts. But I want to welcome back, man, an old friend. It's been a while since he's been on the show. Owner, fearless leader of Tempo Storm, Reynad. What's up, man?
Not much. It's good to be back. Excited about the new set, new cards. Yeah, looking forward to talking about them today.
Yeah, it's always great. I mean, in the past, we've always had amazing episodes with you and talking about the cards and getting a chance to go back and forth with them. You always have a different perspective on them. That's what I love about it. But we've got tons. Like, I think we've got literally 40 cards. If we're gonna actually show today, we're not gonna actually go through them all. Okay, we're not gonna go one by one like we've done in the past. We'll just show them, kind of get a general sense of them, and then we'll dive into any ones that we're really passionate about or we think would be good to discuss. But before we get to that, we've got some news to talk about. HCT Winter Finals. Winter Championships happened this past weekend in the Bahamas and ended up concluding with a 4-3 victory by Stan Udachi. So congratulations to him for winning. And that all happened in the Bahamas. I don't know. You guys get a chance to catch any of it at all? Like this finals?
I watched a little bit, but just a few of the key matches, you know?
Yeah.
It was kind of regret not going out, honestly.
Me too, dude.
Yeah, they invited me, but I didn't think it would be that easy to stream from there. You know, they always say it's easy to stream wherever you go, but
that's right. That's
the reality is,
yeah.
True fact. Like,
No,
oh yeah,
yeah.
we can totally set you up.
Yeah.
There's been so much travel. It sucks to have missed it, but it looked like a great event. You know, all the developers are out there, the players. It was looked like everyone had a good time.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of the community was out there. It was like a vacation, for folks that weren't necessarily there to work or anything like that. But lots of streams, lots of fun streams. Mike Dene did co-op streams on, I think, 5 or 6 people's streams, and that was really cool to get a chance to know him a little better, for folks that haven't met him in person. Noxious, you get a chance to watch any of it?
Yeah, I mean, I caught a bunch of matches like here and there. In no particular order, I ended up watching a bunch of the stuff that came up.
Yeah.
I'll say something about the overall event, right? Beyond just the tournament itself, it's kind of nice to see how much they invested in promoting, I guess, the expansion in a different way. Like, it wasn't just, oh, here's the Winter Championships, or bringing people over to Bahamas. It's here's this event that's also acting as a Winter Championship while having to do with the Ungo release, right? It was clearly meant in the spirit of something big coming in for them, which is the first rotation of Standard. And you could tell that the devs were excited to have us look at some of the new stuff as well.
Yeah. It was the best one. It was definitely the best season, at least season championship that we've had ever in Hearthstone, just because it combined the community with, like you said, with the expansion coming out. It was just good timing. Having in the Bahamas too, by far the best location I think we've ever had, and just the festiveness of it, and it just felt like a good vibe over there. Mixed with the competition, it was definitely a great event, and hopefully the coming ones will be just as epic. I don't know where they're gonna pick. That would be, I guess better, or not exactly tropical like Bahamas, but still have that epicness. It might be hard to come up with a place that's gonna have that much impact. But overall, yeah, I think the games or just the competitiveness of it was good. The production too. What did you guys think of the over the shoulder type of cameras and close-ups? What'd you guys think of that?
Well, I mean, it's no substitute for in-game spectator client, but it was cool. It's always nice to have good production value on the event, and I think from a gameplay standpoint, not to be like overly negative, but I think from a gameplay standpoint, it was possibly the least interesting meta to ever be in a featured tournament ever. Yeah. Everybody played the same decks, and those decks were built with like 28 cards identical to each other. Despite that, the viewership was pretty good. So that means, from a production and a marketing standpoint, it was all really well done. And I think that the timing is really, really good leading up to this upcoming expansion. So you get all that hype from the the HCT tournament, and then that builds into the daily login rewards, and then that builds into the set release. So
yeah. They synergized, or they timed it all really, really well this time, where before, something would be just a little off timed. I mean, at times we'd come out with expansions and then or have a huge nerf right before a huge tournament. So this all seemed to work out really, really well. And maybe it's a sign for the future. The planning is much better now, I'm hoping. But this is a great way to start off the year for sure. Frozen, man. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting is if you compare it to the Magic like Pro Tours, which are these big events that happen 4 times a year. The Magic Pro Tours happen right before a set's released, or like right as a set's released. So there's almost no time to practice with the new cards, and it's kind of an event meant to market the new expansion coming out. Yeah. But in Hearthstone, it's kind of the opposite, right? The competition happens at the tail end of a format, right before a set release. And I think it'd be pretty interesting if they, were to shift the championship like a month or something, or like a few weeks. Because imagine if that tournament happened, right after Angora. That would be, I think that would be more just like interesting to watch. And I think it would be a better indicator of who's better at the game and who has a better understanding of it.
Deck building, at least. Yeah, I think the deck, like the creators of decks right now, don't really get their time to shine very much, because they do as soon as the expansion comes out. But by the time the first events come out, it's been like, let's say 2 weeks and a month, and then the decks have been refined. At least like the general drafts of it have come out. And so the crazy edge that a good deck builder would have within the first, let's say, few days, just gets thrown out the window. And so that window of opportunity for deck building to really be showcased is, I feel, in Hearthstone kind of missed for the competitive side of game of play. Yeah. And I think that penalizes not everyone, because some players are much better pilots than deck builders, but a decent chunk of the people who we don't necessarily see too much on the pro tour, or the pro scene rather, would maybe make it to the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest argument against that is, is that championship reflective of the entire season then, or an entire winter season, given that, there was 3 months of that meta that was being played. And then so if you come in the championship, some folks are not good deck builders. Like, we all know that. And so they would be possibly terrible in the finals and playoffs. What do you say to those folks?
Well, I think it's better for the health of the scene when there's continuity in like the names and faces that you see in these tournaments. If the 8 players in the tournaments are different every single time, except for like one guy that's sort of known, that's really like a tough storyline to sell for the scene, and it's tough to build a fan base around the players. So I think if you keep doing these big flagship tournaments at the tail end of a format, I think you're going to get more variety in names, more new players, which isn't like a bad thing, but it's like, it's just because the format's so refined that the players at the very leading edge of the meta and the people that are like 3 weeks behind are all playing the same crap. So the results become kind of random. But the qualifier process leading up to that, it definitely is. I don't know, man. It's
tricky. It's like a mix of marketing and with competitive stability too. So
I'll put it that way too. Like the players who are not deck builders and who wouldn't shine in the system we're talking about. One of the things that usually happens is that pro players in Magic usually just talk to each other, and some of them are better deck builders, better at teching and just refining deck lists. And so what you end up having is a bunch of pilots who work with the deck builders. They all play the same stuff, but it's a playtest group that goes in, and then one of them makes it and the others don't. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a cooperative effort. So you might have like a different lineup being built by 5 different playtesting groups that make it to that tournament after Hearthstone's new expansion comes out. So I think it would still create diversity, and you'll still have like people who are pilots still making it there. They would just not be working on the deck building portion as much.
That's a good way of putting it. We definitely hear the shout outs that go out at the end of events, when they give practice partners and all that stuff. But, having a team, not just like your standard brand team, but, just a team of players, and have, like you said, the pilot or like the driver, right? Like, racing teams and things like that. That's kind of a cool way to look at it. Okay, well, next bit of news, we got global games. The teams were finally announced. We had the whole voting, nominations a week or 2 before that. And then we're finally seeing who the 4-man teams are for all the different countries. And it's hard to show all of these things, guys. So, I mean, I'll just kind of give you guys the website, and you guys can go look at it yourself here in chat. But yeah, Ray, like, we didn't get a chance to talk to you about this event. What do you think about the global games, just as an event first, and then we can talk about the teams?
I'm not against it. I think it's a cool thing to showcase Hearthstone. I think it'll be definitely an interesting event to watch and follow. And I like the whole voting element. There's definitely like a childish side of myself that's like salty for not being in it. But, I mean, like Forsen was qualified. It's like I actually do play in tournaments a decent amount, and I don't know. It's fine. I mean, North America had a lot of candidates. I think yeah, overall it's a cool event. I look forward to watching it. And I think yeah, it's overall positive thing for the scene. I'm glad they did it.
Yeah, I think just this new concept, right, of representing your country has been generally a good idea. We've had some drama that's popped up, in particular around Ponyhoff and people before or during the nomination saying that they wouldn't participate if he gets voted in. And sure enough, Ponyhoff did indeed get voted in. So I figured it'd be worth talking about what you guys think of, just the drama in general. We never really dove that much into it, Noxious, about, just his past and I guess it continuing on and players' perceptions of it. I don't know. What are your thoughts just on him getting in, players deciding not to participate? Forsen gave up his spot, by the way. He knows
right,
he
and
gave up his spot.
Show actually ended up getting the spot at the end of the day, which is pretty good for Show. That's good. That's a good thing. But in the end, like Ponyhoff's whole drama thing, from my understanding, from the questions that were asked to Twitch about Ponyhoff from different organizations that tried to figure out what was going on, if there was anything going on, it seems like it's legit, right? So the accusations of viewbotting are no longer. I mean, they may still be one of the big reasons why people are up in arms against him. But I think another thing came up where there was some shady behavior during a tournament, and now people harped up on that, and it's just a big circle jerk. Worse things have happened, and people did nothing, and now it's just somebody somewhere said something, and frankly, it's all just a big. It's just a witch hunt, like they tend to happen on the internet. So just let it run its course. Give it a month, and people will forget.
I mean, I would say like give it a month, but it's been longer than that.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where like it's the punctual drama that makes it to the top, where all the rest gets buried under, even though it's much worse.
Yeah. I mean, Ray, you're probably a really good person to talk about this too, because like in the very beginning of Hearthstone, I felt like you were kind of in a position like this where a lot of people didn't like you for just whatever magic reasons. I don't know. What do you think? What are your take on this? I mean, is this feeling fair to him? Is this just normal community stuff, especially amongst the players? Because I think a lot of players feel very negative and almost blackballish towards him. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Hearthstone community is just so much bigger than the few hundred players that call themselves pros, and it's so much bigger than the Redditors that it's no surprise he got voted in. I mean, I'm Ponyhoff neutral. Like, I barely know the guy.
Yeah,
I've talked to him a little bit. I've talked to his wife a little bit. Like, we're nice people, but we barely talked. At the end of the day, like, I'm not for or against Ponyhoff or anything, but I'm very anti-Reddit and anti-Hearthstone semi-pro community. Like, not against the community, rather. I'm like against certain mannerisms that they have when it comes to witch hunting people. So, for example, like, how do I put this? Like, it's the way you said it. Like, sometimes there will be a thread that just gets a lot of traction on Reddit, and then that kind of thread will be associated with that person's brand for a long time. And I made a really heated video about this when it happened with the Masan drama, and Reddit like changed its rules. And I said this shit would happen in the future, even if though it's unsubstantiated. And lo and behold, it happened, right? Twitch basically disproved that he was ever viewbotting. He doesn't viewbot, period. Like, they have methods of tracking that. He does not viewbot. He'd never viewbotted. And yet, like, some forum posts from like several years ago and some Reddit detective has now like permanently scarred his reputation because of that Reddit thread. And to Reddit, it doesn't matter that it was disproved, right? The facts say he never viewbotted, but that Reddit thread says he does, and that's what they'll always link. And it's just like really gross negligence from the moderator community of Hearthstone to even like let those kind of posts fester to begin with. I think it sucks to be in Ponyhoff's position where like he did nothing wrong when it comes to the view bonding thing, and then he also never it was never proven that he did, and it was actively like disproven that he did, essentially, by anybody that actually asked Twitch. And yeah, at the end of the day, despite all of that, he still gets all this hate out of nowhere because
Right.
one dipshit who's like salty that he gets viewers wanted to make a Reddit thread full of drama. And this kind of shit happens very often, and I'm gonna fire a little bit of shots. This is why I have zero respect for people like Shockey as a human being, for like when they do shit like post Reddit threads. What was the thing he posted about? It was the Magic Gaming thing, right? That was him.
The whole exposing,
Was it Chalky? I
Right.
don't remember exactly who the
Yeah,
person was.
it was the whole Magic Gaming thing, right? So you have to ask yourself, like, what does he stand to gain from that other than drama and like, I don't know. Point is, the Magic Gaming thing was like actively disproven as far as it could be, right? Blizzard looked into it through IP addresses and everything. We looked into it. There's never any proof of a guy playing for her. But despite that, the drama happens, and she's like this meme that everyone laughs about. And you know, it's like so far, it was so long ago, and there were so many details, and it's so convoluted that in people's minds, it's like, oh yeah, that's that girl that was like,
I know what you mean.
yeah, you know, like they, even though that's not the reality, it's not the truth at all, and it was disproven. You have this one like little shithead that like puts it in front of the community, and it ruins somebody's career, and no, like nobody stands to gain anything from it, right? It makes me feel embarrassed to be a part of the Hearthstone community when the community just like tears down somebody like that. It's ridiculous that they have there's no amount of proof that needs to happen aside from some imagers that people are too lazy to actually click through and read. And it's like ridiculous that that's all it takes for somebody's reputation. It takes such a big sink. So, and it's something that's like just really prevalent throughout a lot of card game cultures that I think Hearthstone definitely had the opportunity to avoid, and the Reddit moderators decided not to. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like really sucks to be in Pontiac's position where being blacklisted and all that for whatever. Point is, I get that, but on the other hand, Pontiac's also not a perfect person, right? So on the other side of it, the tournament thing was complete and utter bullshit, and
the process,
right? Like that was a super scummy thing to do. But then like, right, let's take it.
Other thing, yeah.
Sure, yeah. But let's take it to like the Chalky thing, right? Like Matt, like completely unprompted, he dedicates so many fucking hours of his life to searching out the Magic Amy stuff to stir up some drama. And then his own teammate at the time, Nyman, gets like banned for win trading, and he says fucking nothing about it. Like something that was actually proven and acted upon by Blizzard. Like how sick is that? Like people do things that are so scummy, and just depending on whether the Reddit thread gets traction or not, people talk about it like years down the line, you know? Like, I don't know. I get that that's like really strong opinions and ranting about a lot of stuff, but that's just the reality. Like if it happens to catch on Reddit and it gets a couple thousand upvotes, that's it. For years and years and years, people are going to associate it's done. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether it was proven. It doesn't matter whether there was anything substantial behind it. Just the fact that the Reddit thread blew up in the first place means that his name is forever associated with shitty stuff like that. And I think like a lot of the reason the hate comes from the semi-pro community is like, well, this guy gets so many viewers. Why don't I get viewers? I'm a better player than him. Why don't I get attention for being good at a children's card game? I think that's like the underlying subconscious like motive behind a lot of the hatred. Although I completely agree the tournament thing was scummy as hell if it happened the way that it seems like it did. It's also like several years past that, and at this point all he's doing, and I know because I'm also a streamer, that's what I did for 5 years. Like all he does now is he wakes up, he puts hours and hours and hours and hours into making content and trying to be positive, and then turns the stream off, spends a few hours with his wife, gets some food, and then wakes up and does it all over again. And that's the day-to-day life. Like it's not like some Sith Lord behind the scenes doing horrible things. It's like he just had work ethic and a personality that blew up on Twitch. Like I've never seen somebody be talkative and have a consistent schedule and fail to grow a channel on Twitch. It's like I made a video where those are the only two variables that matter, and Yeah, sorry. I don't know if there's audio issues or anything.
It's like,
but...
yeah, it's for some reason something's happening here. Give me a second. Let me try something different here. Okay, hopefully that's better. I don't actually hear it on my end, but yeah, I agree with you too. In terms of Pony, we had him on the show one time, and we got a lot of crap, or not a lot. I wouldn't say a lot of crap, but there were definitely some people, that aren't normally vocal. It sent us, some feedback on that. And for me, I'm like kind of like you. Like I'm kind of neutral. I'm at this point. It's like if he did do those things, it does suck that he did them. But it's been a long time now, guys, and his stream is obviously popular. One of the most popular streams, I would say, in Hearthstone, at least top, I don't know, would you say top 8, top 10 or something like that? Yeah, and it's entertaining. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, All right. Well, I mean, I think that's we probably don't need to talk too much more about that. But hopefully this isn't the only news that comes out of the global games, because I think the event could actually be pretty fun, and I think a lot of the teams are very stacked with a lot of good players, and could be a very, very competitive event. Okay, let's move on to the cards here. Some folks say we have some audio issues. It's hard to tell sometimes when they get controlled or not. But why don't we jump into the cards and start talking about them? Because I know a lot of people are here basically to listen to that. So I've got these cards grouped in some particular manner. The first one is just a bunch of neutral cards. I figured we'd start with that, and then we'd kind of jump into each of the classes. So I've got a set here that includes, or at least it starts off with Volcanosaur, which is the card that's going to be given to us with the quest, like these login quests that they've introduced, which start today, by the way. If you go log in, get your 50 gold today, and it kind of progresses up from there. And then I think 6 days later, or on the 4th, you'll be getting a golden Volcanosaur if you log in. But why don't we start with that card, just to get things going. It's a 5/6 beast, 7 mana, adapt twice for Battle Cry. Any thoughts on this, given that every single person will probably have this card? Is it powerful? Is it weak? What do you think?
Well, looking through the adapt abilities, I think it's pretty bad overall. Like you can give it like Divine Shield and +1/+1, or like Stealth plus, I don't know, Wind Fury, I guess, is pretty cool. You can give it like 3 extra health and taunt. I don't know. There's a lot of just
stealth.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's like underpowered. I think almost no matter what you get out of it.
Okay. Yes, because we could do what we could do. Well, you can't.
Wind
Can
Fury
you
and
get depths
stealth.
twice?
That's it.
Let's
You
just
want
answer
Wind
this
Fury
right
and
now.
Stealth. That is the only thing you can do with this, I think.
Wind Fury and Stealth. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 burst or something like that.
Maybe can't be targeted by spells as like a 5/9. Sure. I mean, now we're talking Sogoth territory, basically. So there are some fringe cases where it becomes good, but I think the average result is it's just underpowered. I don't think that's something you'll necessarily want. Although I might be surprised. You never know, right? Maybe it turns out to be like this amazing 7-drop just because it's always like a 5/9 with Divine Shield or something, and it just wins games. I don't know. I don't anticipate it's going to see much play. The Paladin 7-drop didn't really work out too much, but this is more of a standalone card you could play on its own. In Arena, that thing is going to be like completely insane, I think. But in Constructed, I don't know if it'll do any waves.
Yeah, one thing I've found, at least with the adapt cards, is when you only have one adapt, the value is like so and very mediocre. But when you start multiplying adapts, getting to 2 adapts and 3 adapts, that's when it's like, wow, okay, you can do some very interesting, versatile things with the card. And this having 2, I mean, that's the why I kind of wanted to bring it up and see if there was, because it's versatile. It can be maybe a burst finish, or somewhat of a burst finish with a 10 hit, or it could be a value play, right, with the divine shields and maybe even not targetable by spells and that sort of thing. But you see any possibilities in a specific class with this card, given it's a beast hunter, maybe Ray at all?
Yeah. I don't know. Wind Fury, Stealth, Blessing of Might, Blessing of Might. I mean, it's one of those things.
Are we
where...
still talking about Volcanoes?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay, we don't have to talk about it.
So Hemet's an interesting card. I mean,
okay,
it's a shitty rare. It's more.
Okay. Let's go on to Hemet. I was just trying to talk about because this is the card everybody's going to be getting. So
There's so many cards to go through. Chris.
All right,
so many
all
cards.
right. Okay. All right, let's go to Hemet. Next. Hemet is a 6-mana 6/6 legendary battle cry. Destroy all cards in your deck that cost 3 or less. What's your thoughts, Ray?
This card's really cool.
Yeah.
It seems like a combo enabler of some sort. There's there have been some like really banned cards in Magic that have done similar things where you just pull like 90% of your deck out and stack it. And it's interesting. I mean, it's like one of those cards that's really tough to evaluate, like so many of these, until you see the whole expansion. And you really have to like go back and think of all these fringe like classic cards like Holy Wrath and Molten Giant and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think it's cool. I think it's interesting, and I wish they just made more cards like this that just like did something unique, and then the goal was to find a home for it, rather than literally every quest they printed that dictates 28 cards of your deck. So yeah, fun card to deck build around. I'm excited to try it out, and I have no idea how to use it yet.
Yeah, I spent with my stream. I think I spent a good 20 minutes the other night trying to figure out, like, what is there a way to break this card, or have this card be completely broken? No, I still haven't found just a very obvious one. It's going to be a mixture of very complex thing, I think, from what I could tell. But Noxious, what do you think?
I'm just bummed out. At least Star Seeker is rotating out. Because you can get a monkey more reliably, I guess. I'll say something about Hemet that I think just on paper is cool. Is just the design of it. I think it's probably my favorite card design-wise of the entire set so far that I've seen. I'm glad they're finally pushing the envelope a bit in terms of what they're willing to give us. Like not every card with creative mechanics has been good so far, but this one is definitely on the side of where I'd like Hearthstone designs to come up more often than not. I think this kind of design is just great for legendaries, where you're just looking at this like, oh, this is not, you play for the stats, sure, it's a decent 6/6, but it does something that's very niche, and it'll fit that one deck maybe during the meta, and when it does, that deck will probably be completely busted.
Yeah, and it's the whole concept of thinning your deck, which a lot of people still have a mental block in terms of how that's good and that sort of thing.
It's terrible most of the time when you do it for like one card, but
right.
When you do it for like 20 cards out of your deck, maybe then we're talking.
Okay. Yeah. The rest of these cards are all elemental centric, so maybe let's get a general thought on what do you think of elementals this expansion, and jump into one of these. Noxious, what do you think? I'll have you start off.
I've actually, like, the more elementals come out, the more I realize how much like a lot of them curve into one another, for Shaman at least specifically. And it's actually making me reconsider the value of the Pyros card for mages. Like, initially I looked at that card and I wasn't too excited, like, okay, a 2-mana elemental, a 6-mana elemental, a 10-mana elemental, but now I'm like, okay, a 2-mana elemental sets up for turn 3 elemental synergy, turn 6/1 sets up for turn 7 Blazecaller. So suddenly you have a consistent, Firelands portal, right? Like, this is basically a Firelands portal with a 6/6 body. So mages can all, like, with Water Elemental, with their Pyros guy, I feel like they're suddenly getting access to like interesting cards. Of course, in Shaman, that's getting Blazecaller after Fire Ellie into Kalimos, the Lord of Doom, that deals 6 damage to phase. But there's so much they can do. The issue is, I feel like these cards are not paying much of a price for being good on curve. And now the big question is, how much can we disrupt an elemental deck's game plan to where they have to skip a beat and say, oh shit, I can't play an elemental now, and now suddenly they're completely falling apart. I think that's what might turn out to happen if it's too reliant on curving out and you don't let it catch a breath.
Right. It's
Like
dragon-like in a way, but I feel like the weight
Yeah.
of the value is in different places when you compare it to like a dragon priest.
Yeah.
Ray, what do you think?
I think like overall as a mechanic, it's tough for me to say until I play with it, but it's really simple. Maybe
It's linear.
Hearthstone, I think Hearthstone has the simplest mechanics overall out of any digital card game. I think it's one of the reasons it's successful. These mechanics aren't too complex to explain to the casual player, but to me it lacks a bit of depth. I mean, yeah, in an ideal game, you are just curving out with animals, just like literally every other deck in the game that's not Control Warrior. And I just think it's kind of lame. I mean, I don't know. I want the 9 classes to have a different game plan, and I don't think this accomplishes that. I think I'm still playing stuff on curve. On turn 3, I'm still going to play my 3-drop. On turn 4, I'm still going to play my 4-drop. There's a small decision to make sometimes about like, do you still play your elemental on the off chance that you top deck an enabler for it, or like an elemental payoff card the next turn. Like sometimes you're going to want to hold one back if it's like a low impact elemental, but I think most of those decisions also aren't that complex, and it'll be pretty clear cut which play you make with these decks, like in 99% of games. So I think I'm a little disappointed that there isn't more decision making behind this, and I'm sure that there's more decision making than it seems like, because again, I haven't played with it yet. I'm sure those situations will come up, but yeah, overall, you're just trying to curve out, right? So I want to play a deck that doesn't have that strategy.
Yeah, and for those of you obviously that are listening to the podcast, we've shown a few of the elementals. Most of them have battle cries that involved, if you played an elemental last turn, get some value. So Blaze Caller, 7 mana, 6/6, gets 5 damage if you played an elemental before. And Servant of Kalamos, 4/5, 5 mana minion that you get to discover an elemental if you played one before. So very common theme. I feel like battle cries, almost all of them have battle cry, which is interesting in itself, but it is very linear. I don't think it's too crazy. What was interesting about these cards, or at least the most recent one they've announced, is that they're neutral. They're not class specific like Shaman, or Mage or anything like that. So we may see this in a lot of classes or different classes. Not sure that's a good thing, because if it ends up being good, that it could be terrible.
That's what worries me. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where if too many classes can play elementals, then I mean, ultimately, if the quest decks turn out well, for all the boredom that one might expect out of them, if there are different ways to complete those quests, right? Maybe the discard lock spawns 2 different types of discard warlocks that complete the quest. Maybe the hunter deck is played with hyper aggro, play a bunch of 1-drops, and then the other side is I play mid range and I play that 5-drop to get me 1-drops. For the Marsh Queen quest. So there are a lot of ways to complete each quest, I feel, or at least 2 ways per class. Sure, one of them will come out on top at the end of the day. So I think elementals, I hope elementals will not suppress that at all, assuming that can even rise off the ground with the meta that might be coming around, since we're still keeping a lot of the aggressive decks around. I just wonder if these neutral packages are with very linear gameplay are what I want Hearthstone to be. I feel I've spoken about out about it a lot, but I'm really worried that this becomes just another Dragon Priest all over. I didn't think Dragon Priest was particularly priestly, right? It's a good deck, but it doesn't have the fantasy of being a priest at all. That's just completely lost on me.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. Well, why don't we move on just to kind of round things out, or at least talk about the cards that are showing here. 1 mana, 2/1 Elemental Glacial Shard, Battlecry freeze an enemy. That's an interesting possibility with that, maybe later in games. Thunder Lizard, Battlecry, if you play an Elemental last turn, adapt. And it's a 3/3 beast with a 3 mana. Okay, well, let's move on. Let's talk about the Rogue cards here. Let me bring it up real quick. Where's Rogue? There it is. Okay, so we had 4 since at least the last time at least last week when we did the show, and pretty interesting ones. I was personally pleased with most of these cards that they announced, but we can dive into them in a second. But I kind of want to get your general thoughts on Rogue. Ray, you want to start off?
Yeah, it's a really cool class, and I'm excited to try out with. This one might actually have a different play style. I'm excited to run some Shadow Step shenanigans and see how it plays out.
We've
And
seen you do that a lot on your stream. Some good stuff
yeah,
there.
yeah, I've played the Panda Rogue deck a lot actually, and they made it a whole archetype now, so it should be pretty cool to play out. Yeah, it's really, again, a really tough one to evaluate, right, until you see just all of the possible cards. But I see a lot of potential here, and yeah, I really, really hope it's good, because this
I do
deck would
too.
actually have a different game plan than, curving out.
It's definitely a higher skill cap type of deck or that you could possibly build. Noxious, general thoughts?
Yeah, that's basically the only quest I'm excited to try. The other ones I'm like, okay, I'll probably make a deck for them, but this is the only one I'm super hyped about. Like, there's so many ways you can make this happen. The most obvious is to me Wisp Wisp Vanish Wisp Wisp. Like, that's the clearest and easiest one.
Okay.
Or I'm just wondering at this point if they'll release more of those Firefly-like elementals. You know, the little guy that gave you a Flame Ellie, 1-mana 1/2 that gives you a 1/2.
Yeah.
If that's like a recurring theme in neutrals, then maybe Rogue will just play those 1/2 generators. I don't want it to be the case because I think that would be kind of boring, but that's another line of approach you could have for that deck building. I just love that they're finally making something happen with bounce. I've told you a long time ago that bounce was the one unique thing about Rogue that I wish Blizzard incentivized more. And we got the Ferryman, which was just so weird last expansion.
Yeah, everybody's like,
It
what?
didn't seem to make
What
any
is that
sense.
for?
Like, thanks for the 2-mana 2/3 that doesn't fit anywhere at all, and it's just a worse Brewmaster for its purposes.
Right.
But now that we see this, maybe there's a point of redundancy where you jam enough of the same thing in that suddenly you can go, Firefly, and then you play 1-drop, bounce it back, replay, and then next turn you do that with your other Firefly. I don't know. There's a way in which this is super fun and viable, and I hope it is.
Yeah, and the quest we're talking about, guys, is obviously 1 mana. Every quest is 1 mana. Legendary, the Cavern Below quest, play 4 minions with the same name. So it doesn't actually say bounce, but it just says play 4 with the same name. And then reward is a Crystal Core, which is a 5 mana spell, legendary, for the rest of the game. Your minions are 5/5, which is crazy interesting because no matter what you throw down or what's summoned by a Death Rattle or anything like that, it's a 5/5. So that completely changes dynamics of even some removal cards, some transformation cards. It's not the same effect as it used to be. So very, very interesting there. What do you think is going to be the best way, or first thoughts on best way to achieve it? Obviously, Noxious said Wisps with Vanish. Ray, what do you think? Just purely Shadowcaster and Shadow Steps, or anything kind of new or innovative you might have thought of right off the bat?
With the mechanic in general?
Yeah, just trying to finish the quest,
And I think there's going to be one thing that, like Noxious's Wisp Wisp Vanish idea, I think there's eventually going to be one way that's just the most efficient to do it, and that's what everyone's going to end up using. I don't think it's as simple as like, hey, there's this one specific combination of 3 cards that's going to trigger the quest. I think it'll be more like, I just play a bunch of value Battlecry dudes like Swashbuckler, and then like the Ferryman and Panda and Shadow Step, and maybe the Cthulhu package would be really good in this, I think. And then you just kind of try to incidentally do it throughout the game at some point, and your quest is just kind of like a
bonus
incidental way to win.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. And the reason I was bringing that up, and just the fact that you had the kind of combo, is we talked a little bit about this when it came to the Warlock quest, where maybe Deathwing is the only thing you play, right, and it just finishes it out for you. But I think you're right too. I think it might be more incidental. And for a while, I was a little upset because I'm like, bouncing is so bad for tempo. Like, can you imagine playing against elemental decks and things like that as Rogue and having to deal with that? But then they came out with Vile Spine Slayer, which I was like, oh yeah, okay, this starts making a little bit more sense with bouncing, like with Shadow Step, and and Vile Spine Slayer, by the way, is a 5 mana 3/4 minion that's combo destroy a minion. So this is a way to, at least contain the board a bit, so you're not just getting smashed by big Jade minions or elementals by bouncing. So I love that card. I felt like this card synergy or put a lot of glue on a lot of pieces that didn't seem to synergize, for me at least.
Right, in Rogue. There's so many cards you want to play. You're like, I can't play Shadow Step. I mean, I'd love to, but I can't get there and survive while bouncing, meaningless kidnappers. Like, that's not going to save me. But this actually helps out.
Yeah, for sure. Mimic Pod, last one. 3 mana, spell, rare, draw a card, then add a copy of it to your hand. Basically a 3 mana Thistle Tea type of card. Oh, you're muted, bud.
Thinking they're just going to jam us a quest with stealth, like based on what we'd seen up until this point. I was thinking this is what we get, but this just came up as a complete surprise to me, and I'm just really hyped about brewing with this.
Oh,
at least
okay.
for Rogue.
Ray, you like Mimic Pod at all, or?
Mimic Pod's a interesting one. It's like Arcane Intellect, yeah, on power level, but it's tough to say whether Rogue wants an effect like that, right? Rogue's a deck that for the longest time has gotten its value either through like individual minions getting like 2-for-1s, like, I don't know, Swashbuckler, Tomb Pillager, Hazard Drake, or it's gotten it like all at once off of Gadgets and Auctioneer. So we haven't really had a Rogue list that just wants to pay 3 mana to go up a card. And whether Mimic Pod's good enough, it's tough to say. It's whether this entire archetype is strong enough. I think we'll kind of decide that. If you Mimic Pod something really expensive, you're going to be pretty unhappy. You don't want to draw, 2 copies of Gadgetzin or 2 Azure Drakes, even in a lot of cases, just too slow. Oh, not Azure Drake anymore, but you know, some 4-drop or whatever. So you're going to want to kind of hit cheap things so you can kind of unload your hand right away. There's definitely an element of randomness, but every card draw effect has a bit of that. I think Arcane Intellect is probably better in the sense that it gets you towards specific cards better. It gets you twice as deep into your deck if you're looking for a specific piece. But then Mimic Pod is like, has a chance of high rolling, because if you hit something you're just not supposed to have 2 of, it's just so gross.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's overall, I'd say this is like the toughest class to evaluate till we see all the cards. But because it does not curve out with efficient dudes, if I had to put my money on it, I would say it's bad, but I really hope it's good.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And some people are thinking, oh, Mimic Pod, it's going to help you achieve the quest too. The only thing I'd say to that is you have to get minions for that to actually help you. And rogues run a lot of spells generally.
Yeah, I'll make a prediction here. It's a very bold prediction because there's only 6 cards left with 1 epic to be revealed for Rogue. I predict a card that lets you target a minion on the board and put a copy of it on top of your deck. That's what I'm predicting. I want to see Thistle Tea and Mimic Pod get some love.
That would make sense. That'd make a lot of sense, actually.
I don't think it's going to
happen.
happen.
All right, Noxious with the prediction.
So.
We'll have to see. We'll have to talk about it next week, because I think all the cards will be out by next week. Okay, let's move on to Warrior cards. We actually had a Warrior card come out today, so I had to add that last minute, literally 45 minutes before the show. So I barely even got a chance to think about it. But we haven't seen many Warrior cards up to this point. I think before these 3, we've had 1, Discover and Goro. I believe that was the only one that we've seen up until that.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was the only one. So we still got a lot of Warrior cards to take a look at. But let's talk about this. Let's start with Molten Blade. It's a weapon, one mana, 1/1 weapon. Each turn, this is in your hand, transforming into a new weapon. So like Shifting Xeris weapon style. Thoughts, Noxious?
I mean, I think this is going to be more valuable in longer games, probably, where you can pick your time. If you have enough time to float the mana to play any weapon you get, and you can pick yourself up like a Reaper that you wouldn't otherwise play in your deck because sometimes you want something else, sure. The big question is, like, is there ever a point where you play this as a 1/1 for 1? Probably in some matchups. The guy goes small time Buccaneer, brings out patches, you have this, sure. Does that even work? Or does it start later? Like, you'd have to top deck it as a 1/0. I don't think this card's particularly fantastic. I mean, it's like Shifter's Errors. Meh.
Okay. Ray, what do you think?
About Molten Blade?
Yeah,
it's a really cool one. It's like, so at first when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this card's actually good enough that you'd play it, right? Because
that's kind of
you think about those situations when you hit True Silver, or you hit another War Axe, and it seems really good. But then I thought about it more, and I asked myself, is it better than King's Defender on average? And I think the answer is no. Like a lot of the weapons you're getting are 3 mana 3/2s as far as the playable ones, and like the really bad ones that you're just not going to play, you're still going to hit sometimes. And the real, I think, deal breaker for this card is that it needs to be in your hand for several turns to get a good hit. So like, yes, if it's in your opening hand every time, I think it is a good card. But when you think about playing a normal game of Hearthstone, if you top deck it on turn 5 or turn 8, you know, and your first flip is a Light's Justice, or your first flip is like Gladiator's Longbow, and you have 6 mana. That's really rough. You have a dead card for a couple turns, and there's a definite cost to that. So overall, I think I would be surprised if it's good enough to make it into decks, but it's not like completely out of the realm of possibility, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this too in a similar fashion. I derived that the value would be a little bit better than Defender, though, given that some of the bad, like Curse's Blade, I think is out, you know, and some of the maybe just one or two of the weapons are gone that would be a little bit worse. And the only thing I could come up with is it would just be in a very aggressive deck, like the Pirate Warrior, and you know, not so much in a control deck. Like, what do you guys think about that? Because in a Pirate Warrior, you just, you know, just hit face, and you want weapons that just do damage for multiple turns, right? Does this have any control potential?
I feel like you've already got good control weapons in the class, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you need more? Like, you could play an extra upgrade in your deck if you want to make that existing weapon
Right,
better.
right.
That's not a Gorehowl. I feel like it doesn't really help unless you want to bait removal away from your weapon, so an ooze takes it and then you have something else. But at that point, I don't know if that just double up on a good weapon you're looking for.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to do like the averages on this, right? Like once all the weapons are revealed, if there are any new ones, maybe this is fine. You know, maybe this is a perfectly fine weapon, and it turns out that the average is a 4-2, and that it does something else on top. Sure,
Yeah.
maybe you can play that, but
Okay.
otherwise, I feel like it's because it also changes. By the way, like the cost changes, right? We've mentioned that, but
Yep.
I think it needs to be clear that you're paying the full mana cost for that card. It's not going to be reduced in cost to 1.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that would be broken.
It actually does transform into the
Right.
other card. Yeah. Okay, well, it doesn't seem broken, so I guess we can move on. King Mosh was the other warrior card that was announced me a couple days ago. It's a legendary card, 9 mana, 9/7 beast, destroy all damaged minions, and they've been hinting at possible warrior cards to help with Jade Druid, given that Jade Druid has been a control warrior killer in a lot of instances. But is this the card you think that they're talking about, or you think they're probably alluding to some future cards, Ray?
I'm sorry, for Cornered Sentry, you mean?
No, King Mosh. We're gonna kind of jumping over to King Mosh. We'll come back to Corner Century.
Yeah, for King Mosh, it's man, that's a tough one, right? It's like, will control decks be a thing in a world of Jade Druid? That's the question. I think like it's hard to say yes to that, but because it's not just Jade Druid, then it's like N'Zoth Priest that can just tech a couple, you know, a couple more late game things and just have really favored matchup. I think that Brawl is just such a powerful card. We're still gonna have Fool's Bane for a while, together with Violet Illusionist.
Yep.
And you know, all these things combined, I think, make you not really need another like AoE effect like that. I think King Mosh, actually, that's a bad example. Not even Fool's Bane. Sleep with the Fishes is a way better example than this. Sleep with the Fishes kills, like, I mean, it's a 4 damage AoE with a Whirlwind, right? For 3 mana. And you compare that to King Mosh, it's really tough for me to justify putting this thing in a deck, right? It's close. Like, I think if it was 8 mana and we had like another, or if it was, let's say if it was smaller and it cost like 7 mana, I think we'd be talking. But yeah, as is, probably not quite good enough, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like Warrior doesn't have a very clear finishing move right now. I mean, we have Grom, still there, and people even now have figured out they've had to do the Alex Straza and Grom combo with a weapon equipped to finish even Jade decks. But I think until that's clearer, it's going to be still rough life for Warrior to continue playing this kind of removal game. But King Mosh for sure helps against Jade decks, right? I mean, or Jade boards.
I mean,
that are
what's one
very
turn
impressive.
when you're gonna get buried under 17/17s? Like, it's cool to. It's like Twisting Nethering, a board full of 9/9s and 8/8s. The next turn he goes Gadatan, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, and you're just looking at this like, oh, what have I done?
9/7 though. I mean, this isn't like a
right,
3/3
sure,
that just destroys
like,
the board.
when have you hit their phase during the game to where that's gonna win you the game?
Right.
I think this card supports. Like, we've looked so far, like all the legendaries that seem to be released have something to do with the quest to some extent, right? Like they try to make it so you want to play like buff decks with the 6 mana 3/7 to buff your little 1/1, so you want to have bodies on the board. the Clutch Mother with the discard quest. So I'm feeling like the Warrior quest is going to deal damage to enemy minions every turn once you complete it. You play a bunch of taunt minions, trigger it, and then you just deal damage every turn. And in that case, King Mosh is automatically enabled on 9. I could see that. But if you have to hold Whirlwind and not use Sleep with the Fishes for this, which is the biggest argument against it, I don't know, man. I'm not feeling like this is a particularly good destruction effect.
Okay. All right, we're going to have to... I'm sure people are going to play it right off the bat, so I think we'll find out very, very quickly how good King Mosh is. All right, so the last one is a card that just came out literally like an hour ago. It's called Corner Sentry, 2-mana, rare, 2/6. Sounds familiar. Taunt, sound familiar. Battlecry, summon 3 1/1 Raptors for your opponent. So essentially, Dirty Rat Warrior style. You know, instead of pulling out a random card, you pull out 3 Raptors. All right, so let's talk about this. I don't think this is better than Dirty Rat. I mean, it's just Dirty Rat has these amazing timings you can use, but is this worth the penalty that you're going to be taking by getting this early taunt, Ray?
I think it is. I mean, in a lot of cases, it really depends on like what whirlwind effect we have, right? It's if we get another like Death Bite where I can just bank like a 0-mana whirlwind, then yeah, this card's nuts. But if not, it definitely it's a little bit underpowered. It really depends on what the supporting cast is going to be for it. I think like for something like Wild, it's an interesting card, right? Because you can play it with Unstable Ghoul, or well, if you have Unstable Ghoul in play, you play this, you immediately trade Ghoul into something. And I don't know, or like Death Bite. It has so many synergies, and it's like one of those cards that's tough to evaluate until you see all the cards out there. But I think even though the stats are the same as Dirty Rat, it's a very different card with a very different role. And I think some of the biggest synergy with this card that you got to think about is Brawl. Like just like the Dirty Rat, it's that's a huge synergy. So yeah, I think in Control Warrior, which I'm already playing 2 Dirty Rats in, I would start with one of these. You know, maybe move it up to 2 just to test it out. But this might belong in a deck we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah. Would you replace Dirty Rat, or would you play it like
No.
okay? So you'd add this in. Wow,
Well, this is like an anti-aggro card, right? Whereas Dirty Rat is an anti-control card. So they have different roles, even though the stat line is the same. I'm not playing Dirty Rat because it's a 2/6 taunt.
Yeah.
I'm playing it because of the battle cry. And this I'm playing because it's a 2/6 taunt.
Got it. That's a good point. Noxious.
Yeah, I think the Warrior quest is going to be taunt related, so this is probably going to be jammed in. But if it isn't taunt related, this card's still fine. Just in general, the only thing missing is Death Bite. Like, I don't know if I want that card back in the meta, but just like that's the kind of push you almost need to make this card like an auto include, where you just look at this like, yeah, this is a decent, turn 5 play. It does something on that turn. Whereas now it's one of those things where you have to wait for the rest of the meta to shape up to give you a clear picture of where this goes. I guess you could play do we still have the 1-mana 1/1 that deals 1 damage, Tentacle of N'Zoth? Just meme with that on turn 1 and you jam this in. Yeah, it's a cute combo.
And some of the synergy that's kind of cool with this isn't just Whirlwind related, but like imagine you just have an Acolyte of Pain sitting in play. You just play this, trade in. Like
that's true.
There's a lot of ways to immediately trigger Enrage. I mean, it's a cool card. I used to. It reminds me of when I played Patron. I would play Leroy in the deck, so I could give them whelps and then trade in.
You're right.
This is
I
kind
would
of
play around it, and you could give them the whelps and force the triggers.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't really see a lot of the synergies you guys mentioned. That's going to be a lot of fun to try out. Okay, let's move on to the Shaman cards here, and let me bring it up. And I guess to lead off the discussion, guys, for Shaman, given that, Ray, you weren't here the previous week, and we talked a little bit about the ones released last week. Team Murloc or Team Elemental for Shaman?
Seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, Elemental a million times over.
Okay.
10 unplayable cards. You have to play 10 cards that shouldn't be in your deck in the first place.
The quest is ridiculous.
To get a minion that, like, is barely above. Compare it to Fell Reaver. Like, Jesus Christ.
That was my reaction.
Primal Lord's insane, but yeah, Megafin sucks, I think. Like, even this one I can confidently say before I even see the rest of the expansion. Unless they, like, make 20 Murlocs that are all mistakes, this card's bad.
10 is crazy. I can't believe they chose 10. That is, I mean, okay.
Compare it to the Hunter quest and then throw up.
But I mean, it goes fast. I think like there's a world in which we play an elemental deck with just 2 calling the finishers and Finja, and then we jam this in. You don't
Sure,
play a
I
Murloc
know.
deck. You just play this because it's a card, and then you somehow complete the quest because you're a control shaman. So I think there's like, it's not a
I didn't
build
think about
around
that.
as much because calling the finishers just takes care of 4 Murlocs in one card, which I think on its own is, I mean, it's 4 1/1s. Granted, what's that doing there? But
But even
um,
for control shaman, that's not typically an efficient way to try to end games. You know, like just get a bunch
right.
of whatever value. I mean, like,
Spirit Echo.
yeah, just there's
You
a
Spirit
bunch of
Echo
Murlocs
Mega
in your
Fin,
hands.
and
Yeah,
you just, you go to town. You get
yeah.
another wave of 10 Murlocs. I don't know, man. I like the concept of mixing elementals and Murlocs. Like, that's one thing I want to try to see if this quest can be done the same way people play Finja now, as I don't really want to play this crappy archetype. I don't want to bring out garbage Murlocs, but I'm down for some War Leaders and Bluegills, and I'll take the finishers on top. So
Yeah,
maybe.
Finch is it's something that people have been considering for a while. And for the quest, by the way, guys, unite the Murlocs. It's quest summon 10 Murlocs, reward Megafin, and Megafin is a 5 mana 8/8 Murloc. It's fill your hand with random Murlocs, so it's got that Neptulon feel to it, but it fills your entire hand instead of just giving you. I think Neptulon give you 4, right? Um, Neptulon was never good. Like, at least when I played it, I
It
just
was
never.
bad.
There's just not good
It
enough
was-
Murlocs. It's just for you to get something good.
I think BGH was the issue, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. BGH is bad. One of the big knocks, though, I have to say, like when thinking about the Murloc, was just, okay, how do I even draw cards? Like, I'm gonna, even if I try to achieve this thing before calling the finishers, I'm just gonna be blowing through my Murloc cards. So at least Spirit of the Echo came out, which is a 3 mana spell. Give your minions death rattle, return to your hand. So you'll be able to at least reload a little bit mid game, and then hopefully get Megafin and somehow finish the game with a bunch of Murlocs at the end. But overall, I guess the consensus is it's still weak. Maybe
I
if they
don't know,
come,
man. It could be a bomb. Like, I don't know. I feel like Unite the Murlocs is going to be super polarized in terms of effect.
yeah,
Like, it might turn out to be a complete insane card that doesn't require to build around. In that case, I think that's fine. But if you have to build a deck filled with 2 mana 2/1s that summon 1/1s in a world of Maelstrom portals, you're in for some deep awakening issues. You're not going to like that. It's just not
okay.
built.
Yeah, I agree with Noxious though. If it does see play, it'll be like in a light package. It's not going to be an all-in Murloc deck trying to curve out with Murlocs. I think it will be like a call in the finishers and like
Yeah.
Finja type of plan.
I wish Anyfin is awesome still existed. That might have been interesting because
Okay.
I always played the Shaman Murloc pack or deck whenever I was finishing my Murloc quests every time I get it, and that always surprised me just how effective calling finishers with Anyfin is awesome was in combo with like a Bloodlust, just to finish games that you had no business in winning. So I wish that card still existed because it might have given a little bit more viability to this. Wild's got too many good stuff for you to try this, I think. So we'll see if we have a place for this. One thing I am happy about, though, is that the quest didn't have to do with elementals, because if that was the case, it would just been no question. Everybody's playing elemental. There's, a shot, and it's probably going to be super good. Like, I think it would almost guarantee that would be good if the quest had synergy too.
Yeah. Plus, we also have the 3 mana 3/2 Murloc that discovers a Murloc, right? Like, if you have one, so maybe you can get
okay.
extra Murlocs without playing them. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
It's questionable, but
All right, let's talk about the good card, which is the good legendary that they got. Calamus, Primal Lord, 8 mana 7/7 elemental. Battlecry, if you played an elemental last turn, cast an elemental invocation. And there's 4 invocations, one representing each of the elements, water, air, earth, and fire. The water ones restore 12 health. The air one is 3 damage to all enemy minions. Earth is fill your board with 1/1 elementals. And then fire is deal 6 damage to your enemy hero. So a little bit of mechanics from a lot of powerful cards we have in the game, or even spells we have in the game, all in one big, awesome legendary minion. So, Ray, what do you think?
I think this card's busted. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of people will kind of value these cards based on how good one of the options is on average. But the truth is, when you have an option, you have like 4 different options that adds a lot of value. This card isn't just as strong as like an 8-mana 7/7 that gains 12, or an 8-mana 7/7 that deals 3 damage to enemy minions. It's like the choice adds so much power to it, where it makes it just a powerful play in like every single matchup. And yeah, I mean, this card's just absolutely incredible.
Noxious?
Yeah, I was, I was thinking, how often do you have an elemental? But it seems like there's enough of them that you can either play as a Hearthstone thing or hold on to justify this. And if anything, this is probably one of the few cards for which you're looking at and thinking, okay, I'm gonna hold on to my elemental to play it for this. Like I've seen a lot of cards and I'm just not too keen on, holding off on curve play in Hearthstone to play because they do something crazy. But this guy, I'm like, yeah, I'll keep my 5-drop, for turn 7 and try to make it there with totems if I have to, because this might just turn the game around in your favor, which I love. Look, I'm happy there's a powerful effect like this that will make me question whether or not I should play on curve. But I mean, at the same time, it might turn out to just be the the card that they either have or they don't. And if they do, you lost. And if they don't, well, you're in a good spot. And I don't. It's kind of like
yeah,
one of those super big swing cards. And the arguments against those, kind of comes back to that one as well. But I like it. I really like the design of it.
Yeah, it's hard not to like this card. This card is crazy
fantastic.
versatile. It'll get you out of many situations, and then the field aborted one can set you up for some kind of finish if you, let's say, you run Bloodlust or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the worst one is the Fireball, right, to the face. I mean, I think that's clear, right?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of upset that one's an option, because it's like a I don't know, it's like this extra burst damage you have to constantly play around. Like without that option, imagine a scenario where like Kalmos is your only big play and you want to keep board initiative and you're like forced to play him, but you have to like do the Onyxia option against against a control deck that could deal with it with a brawl or something. It's like now they can just randomly burn you out. I mean, it doesn't take many hits in the face from Fire Elemental to put you in range. 6 burst does a good amount. So yeah, I mean,
That's a good point.
It's definitely the worst on average, I'd say, but like the fact that it's an option is it effectively makes your opponent's life total 24 for the entire game, which is a big deal.
That's true.
Because imagine if that was like the only effect you could do, it would be just a pretty bad card that you would never put in your deck. But just like the fact that in your list you have a Leroy without having to actually play a Leroy, it changes the way the game plays out more than it looks like.
Is this just for comparative reasons? Is this better than Rag? For some of these,
I think so.
Okay, all right, that's pretty interesting.
I wish they'd play more. I wish they'd make more good like control finishers like this. I think I like Kalmos. I like Ragnaros, the Light Lord. I'd like to see more cards like that. Like Tyrion, I think is kind of the wrong way to go, because like aggro and mid-range decks can play it pretty comfortably. But like a big expensive dude that only a control deck would want to run, I think is pretty cool. And it'd be nice to see more expensive dudes like that.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, we're about halfway through with these cards, but let's take a real quick break. And when I say break, we're not going anywhere. We're actually going to give a shout out to some of the folks, some of our patrons that support the show, as well as folks on iTunes. For those of you that don't know, the Valuetown is 100% supported by the Patreon, which you can go to patreon.com/Valuetown and contribute there if you enjoy the show and want to support us, have us, or keep us doing the show and allowing us to do some really, really special things with it. I want to give a shout out to some of those folks right now, to our big legendary producers, Mike T and Richard S, of course, to start off, as well as some others that have been contributing for a long time. Devin W, Anthony L, David T, Louise L, Vince F, Tony R, P. Floyd Guy 84, and Evie. Also, the folks on iTunes that have been leaving us 5-star reviews and some great comments and things. That's been helping out a lot, guys. We've been getting more and more each week, so it's we're kind of inching up a little bit. I mean, we're still in that 2 slot like solidly, but it's just like more and more that we get, it definitely helps out. I want to give a shout out to So Obnoxious. as well as C Senpai and US Ski Team for the latest 5-star reviews. Thank you so much. And if you guys do listen to the show on your iPads or in the car or on your Android devices, just go and leave us a review. It's very, very simple. It takes like a minute, maybe even less to do it. And again, it's a good way to help us out. But in terms of the Patreon, we have this milestone that we've still made. And we've got Ray on to do this for the first time. So Smilestone, it's time for Smilestone. And what that is, guys, it's our time to show that we're happy about the game, or at least we have some maybe fake happiness for the game.
Fake it till you make it, they say, right?
Yeah, fake it till you make it, exactly. And this is where we show that by smiling for 20 seconds. So here we go, starting now. Okay, that was, oh my gosh, I think that was the longest 20 seconds I don't know, it felt like the longest 20 seconds we've ever had.
You counted really slowly, man. I don't know what you did.
Oh, I can't hear you, Ray. Can't hear you.
I said that physically hurt.
Yeah, I know, right? It just starts
used,
jamming.
I used muscles I didn't even know I had.
Oh man, that's exactly why we knew it'd be epic this week. But thanks again, guys, to all the patrons making that happen. And without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So thanks so much. Okay, let's come